I'm gonna hop into the main, well, a pretty major story that happened in the past few days. I read a few news articles about it and saw some clips, so I wanted to show one of the news clips. I'll pause it in between so we can commentate on it. But basically, the story is Qantas, which is a major airlines here in Australia. They have a pretty big network, and they run a lot of flights. But in the more recent years, their service has been quite poor. Canceling flights all the time. Causing a lot of chaos for people. And then recently, they're getting sued by Australia's consumer watchdog body, basically called the ACCC. So yeah, I'll just show the video here.
A turbulent week for Qantas turned into a nosedive.
Today, the ACCC launched federal court action alleging that Qantas has misled its customers.
Between May and July last year, Qantas is accused of selling tickets for flights after they'd been cancelled. Non-existent services still on sale, sometimes for 6 weeks.
It will technically
6
relate to
weeks
multiple breaches
after it was
on
cancelled.
thousands of flights.
In one example, QF81 should have
how-
gone from Sydney to Singapore on
How
June
are you
4.
still a
It was
legitimate
cancelled
business that
February
you're
8,
doing these
but
kind of
not removed from
practices,
sale
right?
till
I'm
March
glad
27.
they're getting sued.
No
I
one
didn't
was
know they
told
were doing
until
this.
March
I knew that
28.
they do a lot of
The average delay
cancellations,
in
but
notifying passengers of cancellations was 18 days and as much as 48.
But for cancelled flights, it's just unbelievable.
crazy.
There's a lot happening with Qantas that, questions need to be asked.
The Prime Minister happy that will happen.
The ACCC's job is to look after consumers.
Within hours, a Qantas backflip,
Hello, I'm Alan Joyce.
scrapping the controversial December expiry date for its COVID credits.
So the expiry for the COVID credits thing, apparently before Qantas was gonna say like, oh, if you don't use your frequent flyer kind of miles up by a certain date, it would just get canceled completely. And this was during that time where everybody was like locked down, so a lot of people had a lot of miles saved up. They're called Qantas points here. Yeah, so quite dodgy, and then they ended up backflipping on that because they got a lot of backlash. And so now, yeah, they're being sued, which is a good thing. So here you've got the ACCC. Sorry, I'll just zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, this was posted on the 31st, and they announced that they're taking Qantas to federal court because of their misleading advertisement and very deceptive conduct. So for more than 8,000 flights, it had already been canceled, but they didn't remove it from the sale. So they still took people's money for it, even though that flight pretty much, wasn't going to go ahead anyways. Super dodge. And you can check out that Twitter post links to their article here on the ACCC website. Yeah, so they basically took advantage of that and was doing some really dodgy sales for more than 10,000 flights scheduled to depart in May to July 2022. They didn't notify them, as you saw in the video, in some cases for up to 48 days, right? And in a few other news reports, they only gave the customers like maybe 2 days notice between telling them that their flights have been canceled and when the flight was actually going to go ahead, which is crazy, especially if you're traveling internationally for such a short, heads up. It's just going to throw your holiday or your trip into total chaos. So I think it's nuts that Qantas even thought this was okay to do. But we will dig into why Qantas, their business practice, their bitch dodge. In my opinion, I think they're being propped up. They get a lot of money from the government, so Australian taxpayer money props them up. And I've got an older article here talking about how they originally got about 2.7, according to travelweekly.com, $2.7 billion from taxpayers during the pandemic. So, and 900 million, that includes 900 million from the JobKeeper program, which was like the COVID stimulus program in Australia when people, who either lost their jobs or some income due to the shutdowns, the lockdowns. So yeah, Qantas, a private, business, receives $2.7 billion of taxpayer money during that time to prop their businesses up, right? And, small businesses, a lot of smaller, restaurants, they're all shutting down, and tourism, got, really wrecked. Did they get $2.7 billion from the government, like from taxpayers? A lot of them had to shut their doors, as a result. There's a lot of stuff closing now. Restaurants that didn't make it, etc. And Qantas reported that they made a record profit of $1.74 billion. This was before the lawsuit news, the ACCC lawsuit news was coming out. And not only that, the ACCC bosses also criticized Qantas and also our government because Qatar Airways was proposing to increase flights and stuff in Australia, and Qatar Airways is a nice airlines compared to Qantas. The amount that you pay, the quality of the service is a lot nicer. The food's a bit nicer. The staff are nicer, and it's more of a higher class kind of airlines. They do a better job. You get more for your money. So basically, the federal government here. Let me just zoom into this article so you guys can see it better. Okay, yeah. So the federal government rejected extra Qatar Airways flights to protect Qantas. Basically, in July, it showed that there was a bid by Qatar Airways to add 21 extra flights per week to Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, in addition to the 28 weekly flights it currently offers. But that was rejected. And the reason why was the federal government said it was to protect the natural interests. And which obviously the ACCC people said that that's not competitive, because that will keep the airfares to Qantas and stuff higher. If you destroy competition and, completely reduce the competition for Qantas, you'll never get that adjustment in prices, right? If you have one business and another business competing with each other in the market, consumers, have the choice to go, oh, what's a better deal? I'll go with that one if it's cheaper, and various other factors like service and stuff. Qatar Airways would have made, quite a bit of money from that because, they're a better service in general, in my opinion. So it's crazy that Qantas even has the power to lobby the federal government to make a decision that is, in the interest of a private business and not of the, citizens of Australia. So they're in bed with each other, basically. Yeah, so the ACCC was pretty pissed, and I think they should be. I think as citizens, you should be, because you paid for Qantas, their stimulus checks during COVID. That was taxpayer money, they tax us like crazy here. And it's going to a business that has really poor business practices and is doing things that are, would be considered fraudulent, selling tickets for canceled flights. So I hope that the lawsuit, goes smoothly for ACCC and that Qantas gets what's coming to them, because I don't think that their airlines, they call themselves the spirit of Australia. That's kind of their slogan. That doesn't represent the Australian people. You're just taking people's money and giving them a really crap service. You're basically ripping them off. Okay. Yeah, so I thought that was, a good story to cover because, it concerns everyday people. This is where your money is going. to prop up these dodgy businesses.